Hello and welcome to England on 99.94 Cricket Every Day. I'm Rory Dollard. I'm without my usual boss man, my sweary stepdad, Dan Norcross. He's not here, but I'm glad to say that I have another opening partner today, and it's England and Lancashire's Keaton Jennings, the top run scorer from the county championship. He had a fantastic season, scored 5 centuries, a triple, a double, a 199. And we're going to talk about the possibilities of an England recall. He's had exceptional performances in Asia in the past, and England are heading to Pakistan. So Keaton will tell you his thoughts on whether he might come again. He'll talk about county cricket, some of his teammates. We'll even ponder the Jennings review. He's a guy who's studied administration and sports management, and he'll tell us his thoughts on the high performance review in English cricket. England on 99.94 is your home for England content. We'll be dropping into your podcast feed and YouTube and the 99.94 app several times every week. So please rate, review, subscribe, and thanks for joining Cricket's Conversation.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
I'm pleased to welcome onto the pod now Keaton Jennings, England and Lancashire opener and the most prolific batsman going around these parts this season in county cricket. Keaton, thanks for joining us. You must be pretty gutted that the season's at a close, are you? Because the runs are flowing off that bat pretty nicely.
Cheers, Rory. Thank you for having me this morning, man. Look, it's been a good year. It's been a good year for Lancashire as a whole, really. Was it second in every comp available? So it was, it was a really good year to be a part of. And I think the lads loved playing, which I think was the main thing. And guys actually enjoyed the time they spent together and the time they spent together on the field as well, which was good.
And I mean, when you score the runs that you've scored this season, both, as a cumulative amount of runs and then the individual innings, some really, really big ones, triple century in there, a double. What does it feel like when you know that finally it never lasts forever, we know that, but you've finally cracked this game for a period of time?
I can guarantee you I haven't cracked this game. I don't think anybody's ever cracked this game. Me and Wellesley were actually saying on the field, you kind of, as soon as things start happening in the game, things going your way, Mother Cricket finds a way of just kind of chopping your knees off, which I think is the beauty of the game, actually. I think it's brilliant. But no, look, I mean, I think this year was one of those years you look back on probably in retirement, really, and you think actually how special the year was. I did some things this year that I've obviously never done before. A double 100, 199. Me and Rory Burns had a good giggle about it after the last game of the year, which was quite funny. But yeah, I mean, to kind of do what I've done this year, I think was special. I suppose for the minute, it's just kind of enjoy a little bit of downtime, really, and enjoy some time at home and in your own bed, which I was just saying to one of my mates this morning, it's to finish the season, albeit quite a hectic season, you start feeling like a human being again, and it takes you a few days to kind of find your feet, really. So, yeah, I mean, this morning was cooking up a bit of a storm and making some soup and just kind of being a human being, which is quite nice.
Do you sort of realise that you are in one of those periods that you have to just sit back and enjoy, because we know that cricket is a game, I don't know, they say batting is a game of failure, isn't it? You kind of, you have to hang in and eat a few bad days for the good ones. But when you hit a patch where you really do think that if you haven't cracked the game, you've at least found your way and found your groove. Do you really, at what point this season did you feel, I'm in that spot, really?
I don't think it was necessarily a spot. I think you kind of just get the feeling that the older you get, you recognise that you are in a bit of a purple phase. And I kept saying to Graham Onions, I'm on the wave. You just kind of keep trying to ride it. Just keep riding the wave as long as you can and try and hang in and hold that good feeling. Because like you say, batting is a game of failure, which is, I suppose, the good thing of it as well. But I mean, your best guys in the world fail 75% of the time. So we're in a failure-ridden profession. So one, it's about managing your emotions, and two, when things do go your way, you make sure you cash in. So yeah, look, I mean, I was lucky enough to do that this year. Hopefully next year is exactly the same. But if it's not you, I suppose you fall back as I'd like to say, an experienced player on the hardships that you've had before that have hardened you, and made you slightly more savvy, and you have a better understanding and method to try and get out of it, really. So yeah, look, things went well this year, but at some point the proverbial will hit the fan, and you've got to make sure you hang in for that.
I'm in a failure-ridden profession too, Keaton, because I've got to work out who's getting picked for things, and I've got to say on day 3 that England aren't going to chase down 370 against India. So I'm in a failure. I have my fair share of failures to cop as well.
Good, exactly.
Listen, I think you're 30 years old now, Keaton, aren't you?
Yeah,
so, I mean,
so I turned 30 this year.
I suppose that's, I don't know, does it feel like that's peak years for an opening batter, because you've had your share of experience, you've been around the traps a wee bit, and maybe you've learned to ride those peaks and troughs a little bit, and not let it sort of dramatically shift you for good or for bad?
Yeah, massively. I think age is a big factor. Age, maturity level. I think anywhere between sort of 28, 29 and sort of 35, you start sort of hitting your peak, I would think, as a batter. Bowlers maybe slightly younger, just because of the wear and tear of the body. But I think you get to the point where you're happy with where you are as a human, you're happy with where you are as a game, and I suppose you are just slightly more comfortable, and you start recognizing different things in the game, ebbs and flows of the game, and you start adjusting accordingly. So it's yes, to answer your question, I'd say it's definitely the sort of best years of a batter's life between 28 and 35. I think there's a lot of guys that have scored a lot of runs in that sort of period. But it's making sure you take care of that period as well, because it can be a period where motivation starts to slip, your own standards start to slip, because you do have 100, 150 games behind you, and you kind of think you've been there and done that, and Mother Cricket rears her head and she chops you off at the knees. So you need to make sure you take care of all the little things that you do day in, day out.
You said you were having a bit of a laugh and a joke with Rory Burns. I just wanted to ask you if there's a bit of if I suppose in football we talk about the goalkeepers union, and in cricket maybe it's wicket keepers. Is there also a bit of an opening batters fraternity in English cricket, because you're all bloody silly enough to want to open the batting in England?
Yeah, mental. I'd say there's probably just an opening batters fraternity, full stop. I think to do the job, you probably have to be slightly skewed anyway. But yeah, I'd say definitely. I think, I mean, the other night we sat around in the Hilton. Obviously, Surrey had won the championship. Rory Burns and his partner Patel were chatting, and myself were kind of just chatting around, playing and opening the batting and all the rest of it. And Cameron Steele was chatting to Rory's dad at the time, and obviously Cameron's turned around, good mate of mine, good mate of Rory's, and seen us chatting, so he wanted to turn around and come and chat. And Rory's dad held him back and said, "No, you don't open the batting. You're not joining that chat." So it was, I mean, it's little things like that you, I suppose, Cameron's obviously opened the batting and done quite a bit of it. But it's, you do kind of look out for each other, and especially the good blokes. I mean, Cameron's one of my best mates. He's an absolutely fantastic human. And you look out for each other, guys that have done the job, and guys that I suppose just have a good value system, and you want those guys to do well.
Can I ask you as well? I suppose there's a bit of a trend of sorts for people who've had reasonably prolific seasons at some point of their career at the top of the order, and you look for them the next year, and you think, I wonder if they're making a bit of a charge, and they've managed to buy themselves a little trip down to 4 or 5 or something, and they slip back down the order. There are people like yourself who don't really sit, and Alex Lees fits into that category too. People who just come again and again and again to sort of have a bite at that thing, even in those years where Alistair Cook averages 19 or whatever, I suppose it takes a certain kind of commitment to that profession of opening the batting, to just never ask, can I have a little dart at 5, where it's a bit softer?
Yeah, look, I think it's, I suppose maybe from a personal point of view, it's probably a bit of stubbornness as well. I think I love a challenge, albeit I've never done the job outstandingly well, but I love a challenge, and I'll never be a guy that shies away from one responsibility or two a challenge. I want to front up, and I'll try and find a way. Um, so in a way, I'm quite proud of myself that I've always kind of kept fronting up, even when times were hard, and I've been dropped 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 12 times, which is, I think, part and parcel of professional sport. But yeah, I mean, you cry, you do what you need to do, you get a cuddle from your loved ones, and you move on. But yeah, look, I mean, opening the batting's hard. You have those. I think probably the hardest bit is the wear and tear takes on you, because you have those little niggle periods of 5, 6, 7 overs at the end of day's play, and yes, you get through it, but you've still gone through the mental drain of getting through it. Or you get out, and then you have the sort of mental anguish of stewing on it all night, and then you wake up in the morning and you're one down, and you got to kind of sit there and stew on your own thoughts the next morning again. So it's probably just the consistent battering, or the sort of Chinese water torture to a degree. On the other side of the
That
foot,
explains
though,
it pretty well.
yeah, exactly. But on the other side of the foot, though, when you do it well, I think it's one of the most rewarding things. I suppose like slip catching, you do it well, it feels great. You do it poorly, you in the kind of crossbow.
Got you. We'll take a break there. We're going to come back with Keaton in a few moments, and we're going to talk about international cricket and have a look at England.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app, and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
Keaton, thanks for being with us today. I suppose after a season like the season you've had, averaging great, scoring loads of runs, centuries, 5 centuries, some big ones in there. We do inevitably talk about England. You've been in that treadmill before. Probably the opening position isn't absolutely locked down for England, as it never seems to be, of course. How do you see that at the moment? You're 30. We've talked about how you've got a bit of perspective, and I don't know, maybe you're not feel like you're chasing that so hard.
Yeah, I suppose there's probably 2 parts of it. One for me really is the opening berth at the minute. I think what Stokesy and the squad seem to have done incredibly well is back guys, and publicly back guys, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So I think I would assume those 2 guys would open the batting in the next Test match. It's an incredibly tough environment, and I think once you've had a taste of it, positive or negatively, the intensity of it, you can appreciate how hard it is. So I suppose for myself, I played 15, 20 tests, whatever it is. You realize, yes, it would be fantastic to play more, and I'd love to. I mean, it's every kid's dream, it's every man's dream to want to play international sport. It's to compete at the highest level in front of as many people as you can and do well. But also recognize the fact that if it's not to be, it's not to be, and that's okay. And I think I probably struggle with that for a little bit. You kind of want to do more, and you kind of, how do you prove yourself again and again, and what do you need to do? But actually, that's not when you are your happiest or when you play your best cricket, because your sights are elsewhere. You're taking your vision to another place. So for me, it's actually just enjoy cricket, and if international recognition comes off the back of it, great. If it doesn't, cool. I'm very happy in my life, and I think I've done a really good job in the last couple of years.
I think
of
because England are going
myself
to Pakistan next, and as you say, they have backed Alex Lees and Zach Crawley. But with England going to Pakistan next, your name comes up because you've got the 100 in India, you've got the 100 in Sri Lanka, and the last time we went to Sri Lanka, at the very start of COVID, which seems like about 30 years ago, you were called back up for that squad as sort of, I don't know, courses for courses, Asia specialist, whatever you want to call it. So I suppose the idea is maybe England might look at you again for Pakistan. Has that crossed your mind?
Look, I think it's naive to say if it hasn't crossed my mind. I mean, it would be fantastic if I did tour there. I think it would be a huge historic tour. I mean, obviously for the cricket, but regardless of cricket, its sides haven't toured there. Sides haven't been going to Pakistan, so to be a part of that trip would be absolutely amazing. But at the end of the day, I've said it a couple of times in the last week, it's completely out of my control. It's not something I can do anything more or less to persuade or pick myself or not. And for me, it's at the minute, it's about actually just enjoying a little bit of downtime, enjoying some time with my better half, going walking, and actually being a human being again. So, I mean, England's selection is amazing, but that's down to the guys, the group of men that, or the group of people that make the decision of the 15-man squad that'll go over.
Is it also, I wonder if also it feels a little bit in the past when you've been talked about in those terms, and I think it is because those two really amazing innings that you played, the 2 centuries for England, do stand out. But as someone who opens the batting in England on pitches where the ball could do plenty, and you might not see a spinner for the best part of a day in county cricket, does it feel a bit reductive to be talked about as Keaton Jennings sweep specialist when you might not play a sweep for 2 days in an innings?
Yeah, I suppose it's maybe slightly backward, but I think it's probably one of those. I don't even know what the right word is, but probably one of those circumstances that things just happen that way. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an incredibly good player of spin. I think I've got a bit of a method that, touch wood, hopefully keeps working. But it's quite interesting because you, like you say, you open the batting in arguably one of the hardest environments to open the batting. But the play of spin statistically is probably better. So the argument is probably there, like you say, to drop to 5. But again, that's probably the challenge of me and my own headspace, where I get through the new ball and then actually you're on 20, 30, 40, 50 whenever the spin cut does come on, and actually then you're in a real good position to try and move the game forward and dominate the situation. So yeah, look, I mean, it's I suppose it's an argument that it's kind of above my head, really.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that the current regime is very supportive and has made a real point of backing Alex and Zach at the top of the order. How do you look back? How do you reflect on your own time with England? Did you feel you had a permanence in that team at any point, or did you feel like you were always auditioning at some level? How did you feel that went for you?
I think first I've got to say the individuals in the side, I think, I definitely felt backed. Ruti was amazing and making me feel backed. Even just as a friend, as a bloke, he's absolutely fantastic. I think the interesting thing for me is, and it's little things, I don't know who's made the decision, but it's things that when you look historically, we've picked squads for the next test match. Now the management system is picking squads for the series, which I think is fantastic. And it real shows a good backing towards the group, that these are the group of players going forward. And yes, guys may think from the outside it's quite frustrating that you aren't getting a go, whoever it may be. But actually, when you're in that sort of pressure cooker, it's those little things that I think at times I felt like I didn't know where I was. And at the end of the day, runs are your currency. If you don't score runs, you're going to get dropped. And that's the bottom line fact. And I didn't do well enough to maintain my position and promote my own career with England. And I'm not happy with that, but I'm content with that. But I think it's those little things that when you have, it's not naive, but you understand what I mean, a naive backing of players, and it's just, these are the guys. I think as a player, that gives you a huge amount of confidence to go and play the way management wants you to play, which I think is brilliant.
Can I ask you, Keaton, just about a couple of guys who you play with? We know that Lancashire's been a real feeder for England of late, whether it be Liam Livingston, Saqib Mahmood, yourself. Matt Parkinson made his debut. I just wondered if you could let us know how you reckon Matt has travelled this summer, because he got that test cap that he's been really chasing for a long time. And then maybe it feels like he didn't quite bounce up high from that, and he maybe needed a bit of a lift again come the end of the summer. Yeah,
look, and I think he got that lift. I think he bowled fantastically in the last couple of games. I think Matt's had a summer that any young cricketer would have. You play well, you don't perform, you try and find where you are. Ball doesn't quite leave his hand the right way, and then you try and search and you're trying to find the rhythm to your game, which I think is 100% natural for any young player. And actually, I think, in my opinion, is needed, because not only for Matt's case, I think for young players, because you figure out one, when things go wrong, how you want to fix it. Two, it hardens you as a person and as a player, and you grow, which I think is brilliant. I think Matt's a fantastic bowler. He's a really, really fantastic bloke. He's one of my really good mates. He's a young lad and he's doing really well, and he needs to just keep growing and keep pushing himself consistently to try and get better and better. And I think you'll be fantastic.
And I want to ask you about Josh Bohannon as well. He was someone who, at the start of the summer, felt like with that number 3 spot potentially up for grabs. Obviously, England went with Ollie Pope and promoted him, but Josh felt like he was sort of in that conversation. Do you think he's someone who could have the game for international Test cricket?
Absolutely. I think when you look at his stats, he played 50 games, averaging 45 or something. As a young player, that's quite rare when you get that sort of level of consistency that early. And he's one of our leading batters, or was one of our leading batters consistently. So he's a good lad, incredibly good fielder as well. I think a lot of people kind of underestimate what he does in the field. He cuts off a lot of runs and adds a lot of value. Those little legs move quite quickly, so he cuts off some really quick angles. But no, I mean, Boshy's done really well, and I hope he can continue to grow, continue to find areas in his game, and he has done. We had some really good chats the last game of the year, just about areas in his game that he can improve and how he wants to improve it. And he's very clear in the way he wants to do that, which I think is brilliant. So, and he's a good hard worker. I mean, there's been championship days this year where we've played. He's obviously batted in the morning, pre-game, got himself ready, batted, maybe like 20, 30. The day hasn't gone as he would like. And then he's gone to hit balls for an hour post day's play before coming and joining all the lads for a beer in the Hilton. So I think it's that kind of work ethic that I think will continue to help him grow.
I've got one last one for you, a bit of a horror question for you, but I know that you've done a lot of studies. You know, you've sort of thrown your head into the business side of sport, and you've I think you've finished with that stuff now. But another fella who's done that is Andrew Strauss, and he's also up the back for England, so you share that. And he's just currently in the process of trying to redesign the county game to
I thought this might
to help England's high performance. Yeah, I mean, I just listen as a guy who's just gone and scored a ton of runs over the course of a longish county season with the county championship. Just your thoughts on the proposals as a player and about reducing, I suppose, specifically as the county championship's top run scorer this year. You got a bit of a voice. How do you see it? Because I suppose you got a foot in both camps. You're an active player, but you're a guy who's thought about administration and management as well.
Yeah, look, I think firstly, what the review is trying to achieve, I think, is brilliant. I think to create a high performance environment to try and better cricketers for England, I think is absolutely fantastic. I think that's the way we should and need to go. I think that's brilliant. How we do that's obviously going to differ between 18 parts in the country and then between players that are old, medium, and young. Because guys that are young aren't necessarily going to have the same view as me or as Crofty or as a coach, because people at different stages of life, and people are going to try and, to a degree, protect their own interests and protect their own career path, which is natural. I think my personal opinion would be the amount of cricket isn't necessarily the issue. I think the structure of it can be improved. And I mean, we had an instance this year where we had the first week off. So the first round of championship games, we had the week off, which essentially isn't a week off then, because we played 3 warm-up games. And yes, we could have not scheduled them, but you also don't want to be ready for your first game. Then we played 6 on the bounce, the 6th game of that being against Essex at home. And I mean, we had an incredible attack, but still the guys were blown. I mean, the batters were blown, never mind the bowlers. And we've got a strong squad that we are able to rotate batters around. So from that point of view, I think the structure can be improved in the sense of potentially, and this isn't, I mean, I don't know the logistics of this, but in my head, it works where you can go play 3 games, the whole country has a week off, and that allows a fresh start, play 3 more games. And then I think that way you continue to structure in breaks, which allow players to rejuvenate, as opposed to, I mean, September, if we hadn't played in the one day cup final, we would have played 12 days. Where when you compare that to, I don't even know what June felt like. Just it was in fast forward. I mean, I remember playing a game in, might have been nights. I don't know. It was away somewhere. It was a day-night T20 game somewhere away. We finished the game at 10 o'clock. Drove home. I think we got home at about 1 a.m. We were on deck less than 12 hours later. So if you can imagine, you get back to Old Trafford at 1 o'clock in the morning, you get home by 1:30, you're not sleeping until 2:30 because your body's just flying. So you sleep, your better half, their alarm goes off at 7 because they need to get up for work. It's just part and parcel. So you get 4 hours kip. And then you're wide awake, but you got to be on deck in 5 hours. So you kind of like, get the washing out, like tumble dry it, and you straight to the ground again. So you're playing in a haze. So I think instances like that for me need to be improved. And at the end of the day, you have to play to get better, in my opinion. Yes, there's an argument for quality over quantity. I think 14 championship games for me is spot on. With the caveat of registering in rest weeks. How that works logistically, I don't know. But again, when you look at a 10 and 8 sort of Division 1, Division 2, in my head, everybody can play each other. And then everybody can have a week off and everybody play each other again. So it's, in my head it works, but that's the way I would kind of go about it.
So we'll strap in and wait to see what you've got for the county schedule in 15 years when you're running the place.
See, hopefully I can employ somebody else that will be able to run it on my behalf. That would be even better.
Nice one. Okay, listen, thanks for joining us, and we'll be here again soon to talk all things English cricket. Thanks, Keaton.
Cheers, Rory.